to the Erishow. It's been a long time coming. Today in episode 33, I am joined here by Dean Tribblenim이, the CEO of Agoric. I have waited a long time to bring Dean here, so let's bring him and welcome him to the show. Hi, Dean.
Hello. Hello, Erishow, folks.
Thanks for being here. I am so happy to have you because I've been seeing you from the Stanford Blockchain Conference that time, and I was like, okay, I'm very curious. I want to talk to this person, and that's been a long time ago. So and COVID hit, so we just couldn't really meet. So thank you so much for coming on.
You're quite welcome, and I'm delighted to be here finally.
Thank you so much. For the viewers who don't know who you are, please, can you give us a short intro of yourself, what you're working on currently? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So I'm Dean Tribblenimí, as she said. I'm the CEO of Agoric, which is a blockchain company, which I'll say a lot more about later on. I have been working, I was one of the original cypherpunks, so I've been working in crypto since the late 80s. I worked on the first production smart contract back in 1989. Which predates blockchain by quite a bit. I've been working with my co-founder, Mark Miller, who did, large-scale distributed system stuff with me at Xerox PARC, and have since been doing lots of, deploying real interesting e-commerce and distributed system technology out to the internet, out to the growing world of e-commerce. So, brokerage systems, banking payment systems, privacy systems, email, secure email, cross-section of stuff.
Wow. Yeah. What a trajectory. Like it's just, you're really a true OG. And I'm, I would love to. Well, crypto has a very short history. And I think, 5 years in crypto for me, that has been like, triple the years of the normal land, the normal ages. So yeah, thank you so much. I mean, could you I would love to hear more about what you've been working on before crypto and how that got you here, and how you got really hooked onto the world of crypto, because it's quite, I guess, innovative and very new. And so as someone, as OG as you are, love to really hear your insight on that.
So, since, high school, college, whatever, been really working on having software help enable cooperation between people. And, if you succeed at that, it enables cooperation between strangers, right? So a smart contract is software that is enforcing the terms of a contract-like arrangement between third parties that obviously can successfully predate blockchain, where eBay, PayPal, Venmo, Airbnb, Amazon, high-frequency trading, all of those are systems where, strangers that have never met each other might not like each other, and yet they successfully cooperate, routinely on an ongoing basis to the tune of trillions of dollars, right? Mm-hmm. And the more we enable that kind of cooperation, the more cooperative a world we get, and that's, huge human value, that's huge technical value, that's huge monetary value. So it's a really good win. So that's been a driving vision, and we and other people that sort of have come together to form Agoric have worked in other venues together previously. That's been kind of a driving background vision of building technology to enable cooperation. And by enabling cooperation, I mean safe cooperation, where strangers can safely work together so that you leverage, you can succeed at more activities and more cooperation with requiring less trust, so your trust is more valuable, right? It's easier to trust people when it's safer. That's sort of the good fences make good neighbors. And so security has been an ongoing undertone, but security not for the sake of security, but security that enables safe cooperation, security that is easy to build, security that accelerates your ability to roll out new stuff because you can do so safely, so you can enable more customers to talk to each other or work with each other. Mm-hmm. So that's been a driving theme. A couple of notable prior things that I was engaged in. So just prior to doing Agoric, I worked on a multi-billion-dollar payment instrument, which was, converting paper checks, of which in the US there's still 20 billion paper checks, right, every year. So getting that to be electronic. Mm-hmm. And prior to that, worked on a secure operating system that used asynchronous messaging between secure compartments to produce a high performance production level operating system as a research project inside of Microsoft, right? This is the Midori project. And the cool thing is, in some sense, the Agoric project, Agoric here, pulls those together, where we are using a lot of the same security technologies and security architectures that we came up with, years ago and have applied to multiple different, industrial successful enterprises or technical solutions. And we're bringing that to smart contracts where we've been doing smart contracts kind of in one form or another in a lot of different areas. So smart contracts enable cooperation. I'll add the extra wrinkle of why blockchain is exciting, and then why it's exciting to actually do security in blockchain. Blockchain, my model of that is multiple computers in different jurisdictions, in different administrative domains, hundreds of computers, thousands of computers, whatever it is, voting to agree on what happened, right? Coming to consensus about what happened for data, for choices, i.e., I bid in an auction and then I tried to withdraw my bid, but the auction closed. Which one happened first? Did I win the auction or did I get my money back, right? That's a choice that only can go one way or the other. And the results of computation. And the thing that blockchain brings that did not exist prior to blockchain, that is sort of, to me, the revolution, is high integrity computation, right? The fact that no human organization or government can compromise the integrity of execution on Ethereum, on Bitcoin, on Cosmos, on Agoric, on all these platforms, is just a huge step forward. And so all of these smart contracts that existed, I mentioned, PayPal, eBay, Venmo, all those, they all relied on a trusted third party. Everybody had to believe that eBay was not going to take the best deals and send it to their friends, right? They had to believe that eBay was going to take a fair fee and not pull too much, right? And that's okay for a lot of businesses. That inspired, trillions of dollars of business in that particular style of architecture that Nick Szabo nicely characterized the details of. But what blockchain brings, it means we can do the same thing without that trusted intermediary, without that trusted third party that's in a position to take 35% of the rake, that's in a position to, change the rules tomorrow. So what I thought I was getting today, I don't get. All those things get fixed by having this high integrity execution in blockchain. So that was really exciting. So that led to, some of why starting Agoric was interesting, which I could go into.
Sure. Yeah. Tell us about Agoric. I love the name, by the way. Does it come from a certain term? Like I remember hearing it a lot. Can you explain like how the company came together and like what the name symbolizes? Just really curious about the background.
So the name comes from the Greek word agora, which is the open marketplace in Greece. And this was Mark Miller, our chief scientist, in the original Agoric open systems paper. So these were in 1988. Mark Miller and Eric Drexler wrote these papers that really were the first strong characterization of software agents creating and participating in electronic markets. So they're part of the crypto canon, well worth reading. I go back every couple of years to reread them because they've got sort of this set of insights that's just brilliant. And it's about, it was primarily focused on having markets for compute resources. So for compute time, memory, disk space, network bandwidth, and so forth, so that we could do more efficient resource allocation of hardware resources. Right? And then there was a lot of, like the escalator algorithm was an algorithm that was recently proposed for the alternative to EIP 1557 for gas scheduling in Ethereum, but it was proposed in those papers as a economically sound, economically stable scheduling system in a Byzantine, untrustworthy environment. How do you make a safe market institution for doing processor scheduling? And it's been used in systems like VMware for real scheduling of CPUs in production systems. And it was considered, as I said, for Ethereum, and we'll be using a related algorithm in Agoric. So there were some sort of key insights, some real critical technical designs there, but that's where Agoric comes from. And we've used it in a variety of efforts along the way to talk about markets inside of computers helping solve cooperation problems, helping solve human and business online problems. And so Agoric is the latest and most exciting, most real version of that, of bringing those principles into blockchain, where now you can deploy and run on this substrate, this platform that has just a really high integrity to it. So.
Yeah, thank you so much for the explanation. Like it just kind of comes back like to the, well, security is a huge topic, of course, but like as you explained, like it's blockchain really enables like the security of smart contracts, like coming together without like, you know, interference or changing the rules, right? And like, but in the DeFi world, currently in the blockchain space, right, there's like a ton of security issues that are popping up. And I have to, you know, ask you because I really am curious. I mean, do you think it's just like that's the beginning stage? That's, you know, why it's like popping up, or is it just like, is there a way to kind of fix that? Or, I mean, in your perspective, do you think it's a natural thing that is popping up, or is it just because it's trying to solve that security issue, I guess, in general in the blockchain space? But like, it's just the fact that it's popping up in the DeFi space. I wonder what your opinion is on that.
I have many, yes. So first, let me tell you one more story of going back into doing Agoric, which is related to this question.
Sure.
So I had done lots of, you know, security architecture and security systems as, you know, some of the early cypherpunks and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But selling security is often a thankless task. You know, our background of doing large-scale secure distributed systems uses a security architecture that comes out of the secure operating system world for doing extremely high security, high performance transactional systems. But it doesn't mesh well necessarily with the front end of how you manage a, you know, Windows box or an enterprise right now, and you need to do some more stuff. So one of the things you find is people typically want security. You know, they'll realize, okay, security is important. Give me security. I would like security as long as I don't have to change any of the software I'm using or change any of the practices I have. Just like, okay, you're not going to get security. That's not going to work. Right? And so, as I said, it was sort of a thankless task. You're sort of, you know, swimming uphill to go, yes, they're really excited. Yes, they're really, oh, it's going to change things. Oh, well, we need to reconsider this. Okay. So, and in the space outside of blockchain, like there was the Target breach for $1.5 billion. That was, you know, predictable outcome of the standard security architecture. But in the, you know, historically, if you innovate in security, you innovate in how you do your security, and you make a mistake and there's a loss, it's your fault. Mm-hmm. And so innovation is punished. Whereas if you do the same old crap that everybody else is doing, the best practices, some of which are actually good, but not all of them, right? And you get a breach and you get a problem, well, you apologize and promise to do better next time, and you just move on, right? And so you are punished for innovating, you know, and, you know, maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, but it is a problem for bringing out new approaches and new architectures that actually solve hard problems, and for enabling smart contracts where third parties are going to cooperate. That actually is a new set of problems, and so it needs new approaches. And so the architecture of security in Ethereum, Tezos, you know, related systems is largely derived from the same old for how to manage security. And so it has the same old problems. And so we were seeing in 2017 breaches where security experts would write smart contracts and they would lose tens of millions of dollars in minutes with no recourse, right? Now, in the main Web 2 world, you could apologize and, you know, your stock price hits a little bit and then you kind of recover and you promise you'll do better. You know, and you know, and whether it's in, you know, politics or whatever, you know, same thing. And then they go back to doing the same thing, maybe with a little more scrutiny for a few months, or maybe they actually fix something, right? But in blockchain, no, sorry, there's no apologies. You lost my $20 million and I'm really angry, right? You know, and you can't get it back. You can't apologize. You can't sue the guy who took it, you know, because the rule said they could take it and you don't know who they are. Mm-hmm. And so innovation is actually rewarded, and same old gets punished because you can't actually solve the problem. And so that was exciting because we have innovative technology for being able to rapidly produce DeFi, smart contracts, compose and build off the work of others. And I can talk about that. And that's critical both to being secure in what we currently do, but it's also critical for being able to accelerate the innovation so that I can build on the work of others. And so, you know, security has and remains critical. People will talk about security until they're blue in the face. The question is, do they do something different, right? Mm-hmm. Do they build a different way to solve it? Because the problem is the current security models that people are working from in Ethereum, you know, humans just aren't good at them. And they're, you know, and not only that, but they're not good at what smart contracts solve. So the key thing, my characterization, right? When I get hired at a company, I get I get access to a few websites, or internally, I get access to some data, right? And that's kind of my permissions. And then I get promoted 6 months later because, hey, I'm good. And I get access to a few more systems. But things don't change very quickly, right? But with smart contracts, it's all about changing who has what rights. A simple swap is I'm giving you this right in exchange for you giving me that right? And that's what happens, well, I would say thousands of times a second, but there aren't many systems that are up to that yet. But that's fundamental trade, is about changing who has what rights. And as you get more sophisticated, I'm giving you a fractional share of the ongoing revenue stream from this NFT while giving him voting control, blah, 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 and now I'm giving you a seat at the table that's a right that you could resell in a covered call on an auction through a investment portfolio, whatever it is. That's the rich innovation of ideas piling on each other that we want to see. And yet that's all about rapidly changing who can do what. And so the native, the same old security model doesn't handle that very well, right? And our model does, and our model turns out to be very programmable. To me, that's what the world needs to change to, or rather the world of smart contracts needs to change to, because that's something we can actually succeed at, as opposed to keep building more fragile infrastructure. So it's important to me that DeFi cares about security. It's important to me that they don't get into the same rut of well, I want security as long as it works the same as everything did yesterday. We're still very early days. There's still a long way to go in terms of what's possible. And here's a place where it actually, where securing things the right way actually matters. So it's going to be exciting. So I'm delighted to be back into this. But again, security is a means to an end, right? Security is it, because it's safe to compose things quickly. I can innovate quickly, and I can get stuff out. And so, it's what security is going to enable millions of developers to do, not just sort of security for its own sake.
Yes, thank you so much for that. I really agree with the fact that, projects will build on each other. I think in the world of DeFi currently, we can definitely see that. Projects innovate, according to what's been innovated before. So it's kind of, a rush towards more innovation. And that's what's really exciting about the current DeFi space. So now you're in this fast-paced DeFi space. And, can you tell us more about, what elements or what concepts that, constitute Agoric as, an attractive protocol?
Absolutely.
And yeah, that'd be great to hear.
So we are doing a layer 1 chain. Underneath is the battle-tested Cosmos SDK Tendermint consensus algorithm. So sort of the original well-deployed proof-of-stake infrastructure. And we work with them to innovate, right? But at the core, that's what they're.
Yes.
The big difference is the programmability, right? The big difference is how you build new applications. So 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it is, right? JavaScript was available in browsers, and people could build interesting user interfaces. And so teams of experts inside of large companies, and a few, really energetic developers outside of these companies could build interesting interactive user interfaces inside of JavaScript. They were okay, but they were still way better than HTML pages. But now, beginners with 3 months training can build more responsive, internationalized, faster, flashier applications that also run on mobile devices, because they can use frameworks in the very same programming language with a model that lets them use components from third parties and plug them together. Right. So I can take a slideshow that will show images gracefully, animating across my screen. I can take Stripe's plugin, put them together, and build something that will sell my graphic images, even though I'm just barely a programmer and I'm an artist mostly, but I can put together this amazing thing that would have been hard for an expert 15 years ago. And it works on everybody's browser, and it works on mobile devices and all this stuff, because I have frameworks like React or Vue that let me have these isolated components that I can parameterize and I can install and I can plug together. And there are literally millions of such components, right? And this is all enabled partly because because of partly because of the nature of JavaScript, but then what is done with it, where there's a pattern for building components that is enforced in the language in a framework with affordances that know how to put it together. So, so they can easily render. I can grab some component that knows how to render its graphics and plug it into a framework that I can do my drop downs and menus. And it lets me grab components and plug them together quickly so I can rapidly get something together. But because it followed these rules, it's also safer. So it's faster, easier to maintain, more portable, and safer with no effort on my part because I'm using this framework. So we do that, that's sort of user interface Legos, right? We do the same thing for DeFi. We do the same thing for trade and exchange. So our framework lets you in JavaScript, in a hardened version of JavaScript. So it's JavaScript with the soft and squishy parts turned off, right? So in a hardened version of JavaScript, I can enable take arbitrary code from anyone, whether it's malicious or just buggy or good or what have you, run it in a box with a limited amount of authority. So it's safe for me to run that on the chain. And then out of that, we then have a component model. So I can have a component which is an auction, and I can have a component which is a liquidation component, or liquidation service, and I can have a component which is governance. So if someone is building a new lending protocol, they can grab the liquidation component because that's already battle tested. It's got insurance against it. It's worked to make sure it times well with the rate limits and liquidity pools locally and all that. Plug it in without having to build it. They just parameterize it and say, you're going to liquidate my stuff. And they can use exactly the same voting contract that we use for governance of the chain, only instead of saying use the local chain token and measure who's got what stake, I'm going to use exactly the same contract, not copying the source code and breaking it, which has happened, right? But, but actually plugging it in, right? NPM install Agoric vote, right? Plug it in and say, but don't use the chain thing, use my local liquidity token. So now I'm using exactly the same algorithms and architecture, and it's all code reviewed and battle tested, but I'm using it for my liquidity token for my lending platform. So now I've been able to build a lending application where some of the hardest things that I don't care about, that I want some expert to have already done, I just plug in and I focus on my innovation and I can roll it out, right? And then someone else, so I'm standing on the shoulders of the two developers. And then someone else can do a portfolio optimizer as a separate component that they're just going to plug into my service. And again, asynchronously coupled, sending messages to my service, acting like a client in a way that composes well because of our security model. And now they're building on my shoulders on top of the shoulders of these other two developers. And so that ability to compose fine-grained components and reuse them and rapidly plug stuff together so that it fits together safely and has good control of where the money is and can return people's unspent funds and all those kind of things where they're solved once and done for everybody. That just really makes it safer to innovate, makes it safer to get stuff out as quickly as people are doing it right now. And the pressure to get stuff out quickly is not going to go down. It's just going to go up.
Right, exactly. So I guess it is also suitable for designers or like kind of a early developer student who has innovative ideas, but they don't know how to actually implement it in, and build it from bottom scratch, right? I guess that is the way to
us, one of the earliest, big audiences once we get going there, and we're still not quite, we're not a public chain yet, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Is fintech developers, right? There are more fintech developers in some companies than there are Solidity developers, right? And all of them know JavaScript.
Agreed.
And an astonishing number of them are entrepreneurial, but they have many options. So I've talked to some of them, right? My previous gig was a multi-billion-dollar payment instrument integrated with bank systems, with brokerage systems, all that sort of stuff. I've talked to a lot of them, and they look at blockchain and they go, that's kind of cool. I'll invest some. Developer thing, yeah, it's not really. They bounce. They look at the development environment, just like, yeah, okay, tell me when you've grown up, right?
Right.
And it's not that there's not a lot of great stuff there, but it's like crawling over glass, right? And the thing is, these guys, it's like, I'll come back in a couple of years. I'm going to go work for my friend's hedge fund, and make an astonishing amount of money per year. Let me know when you guys have reached mainstream, right? And the difference of, Kate Sills, one of our main contract framework developers, she did a code with us where you could see using standard VS Code with every time you'd saved, it ran the automated tests and, had tab completion and IntelliSense and all the things developers are used to in mainstream development. And she was building smart contracts in our framework using our system. And it's just a night and day difference in terms of ability to program this stuff and then take that thing and plug it into an existing economy and in order to be able to deploy the business quickly. So it really does lower the barrier to entry of new developers coming into this space.
That actually really rings a bell because I'm, currently based in Vietnam, and like the Vietnamese developers, I mean, there are a lot of fintech developers, and they're very fluent in JavaScript, right? And so I could see that like fit right there.
They're the heroes of the next generation. Is especially for DeFi, fintech developers who they already know JavaScript and they want to program in it. They want to be able to build components. So many of them will produce components that other people will use. Some of them will put together components in new arrangements. Some of them will grab an existing component, change it, and put it back out there with a new algorithm. All that sort of stuff. It's exactly the kind of this is the reason why React.js and Vue.js grew at an exponential pace. Is not just that there were 10 million developers for which, a fertile ground interested in doing things to plant these ideas, but because they could all build on each other's work. And that's something that's really, really difficult in Ethereum and in these other systems, simply because the security model gets in the way.
Yeah, exactly. It might not be like a good question, but like, who would you consider as like competitors in this space? I mean, it is maybe it might be incomparable. I mean, you might answer that, but then are there any, I guess, good projects that you consider? Okay, these projects are really worth looking into, kind of like, I don't know, be inspired by, I don't know, I'm very curious about your insight on other projects that are doing similar things, I would guess, because I think DeFi space is exploding so much and there are many projects popping out. So just curious about that.
So there's a couple of important different dimensions of competition. For the real attraction to, right, Solidity has 10,000 developers that can do DeFi. The rest of the world there are 10 million plus JavaScript developers, right? And we're the only platform that they could build on. So in some sense, there's the competition for their attention is they can go build something right now in Node, deploy it to AWS and do a financial app, and they don't have to learn new stuff in order to do that. So the real competition, to my mind, for getting crypto out into the mainstream is the programmability that can reach those developers. And we're competing against Node.js, where, we work with those people all the time. We work, in the JavaScript Standards Committee. We're competing for the attention of application developers out in the mainstream to be able to do this stuff. And so that'll be a lot of work. We'll get a lot of help from the rest of the cryptoverse because it's good for all of us. Right? Now, in the crypto space, at one level, we're just competing with Ethereum from a project development point of view, simply because it's the obvious place for a lot of people to start because there's a lot of liquidity there. Now, in earlier this year, right, April, May timeframe, there was an important change that people haven't seen all the consequences of. That's a huge, huge step forward with the deployment of IBC. That's the Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol. And so we were part of the engineering team that helped build that, us and ICF and All in Bits, AIB, right? And it got out and onto the Cosmos hub, and it's now sort of a standard part of Cosmos. And that means that any of those chains can connect, and there are now multiple bridges from Cosmos into Ethereum. So from my perspective, we are now in the interchain world in the same way that we were in, the internet world in the very, very early 90s, but most people didn't realize it, right? So they're still using CompuServe, Ethereum, but they could get through from, CompuServe out into the rest of the internet, right? And huge value in CompuServe, but especially in terms of having a pool of users, a pool of active people using early kinds of things. And obviously in the Ethereum world, that's where the liquidity is. That's where the traders are. That's where there's a lot of attention. But with the rollout of IBC. Now, suddenly, the Cosmos ecosystem starts to be a place where there are multiple sites that are suddenly relevant because they're no longer sort of these detached islands out in the middle of the ocean. They've now got a nice bridge with, with plenty of throughput to be able to connect to the rest of the world. And so there's already been a couple of significant rollouts of where the big difference, and this was something that was hugely important for Agoric, is we no longer deploy in a vacuum. When we launch, we will not be launching an isolated chain that needs to get attention directly. We will be launching a chain with economic bridges to Cosmos, Osmosis, Secret, Thorchain, Atoms, and through several of these out to the Ethereum world. And so that means our economic institutions, our stable local currency, our AMM, and those kinds of things, people can just bring assets from Ethereum and bring them on over, literally within seconds over onto our platform to be able to provide collateral or participate in these markets. And so what that means is, if the Ethereum community wants to view Agoric as this awesome programmable layer 2, that's fine. And I mean, that's great. That they've got a lot of assets that are a bunch of brilliant ideas, and we want to bridge them over and be able to use them and take the Uniswap or the SushiSwap or whatever and have a stop loss or portfolio manager written in JavaScript by some expert at that running on our system, controlling those systems, right? Or if they want to build new assets on our thing, because, building an NFT is just, one line of JavaScript, right? It's really simple. And take those assets and bring them over to other Cosmos chains, over to Polkadot, over to Ethereum. All that is to my mind, what the future holds. And that's absolutely what we expect to have happen. And so, so supporting that so are those competitors? Yes. They're mostly competitors for attention, but as we experienced in lots of other systems where they start with, Flash, very hard. Experts can do very amazing, cool stuff. But HTML5 came along, and who's heard about Flash, right? The user interface frameworks before React and Vue. Yeah, no one uses them anymore. I mean, there's legacy stuff, but it still works, and it was hugely valuable. A lot of people had insights, and they immediately could move over and leverage the new technology of real components very quickly, and they could bring their ideas and they could just move faster. And so you got exponential growth, that was able to overtake those already ahead platforms simply because of the programmability. Now, there's also a lot of other components on some dimension that is, like scaling, right? I think of Solana as high frequency trading. It's very hard to program by all reports. That's not going to change because architecturally it's very hard to program, right? But high frequency trading systems are very hard to program, and you don't need 1 million programmers able to build a high frequency trading system. You need 5, and then all of us can benefit from a high frequency trading system. So
sure.
So that's an example of somewhere they're specialized for scaling or performance or whatever, and they'll fit within the overall interchain vision where the programmability layer can be Agoric that helps people leverage all of those very well.
Yeah, I was very curious about your vision of the interchain, the general vision, because I think a lot of people do, it's a very nice concept. I mean, it is. Some people think it's ideal, maybe, you know what I mean, right? So I was, there are debates about that, but
I can give a little bit of framing that might be
sure
that is helpful there, because we're a VM chain, right? You could build everything on Agoric, right? For particular applications, the interesting question is there something about them that should have a different consensus? And if so, then you want to be running in an independent sovereign zone. Is there something, and it might be something that's economic about them. It might be something that's performance about them, right? The security that you need for something that's used for magic items in a game might be very different than what you need for billion-dollar non-custodial trades. Similarly, the performance you need for anything associated with gaming or NFT, music, media, whatever, might be very different than what you need for, large-scale trades that only clear in a day. It's entirely reasonable that those would require running on different infrastructures. That's one dimension. Another dimension is like proof of location. proof of location is a change to how you're doing your consensus, so that part of your consensus is what physical geography are you near. Part of how you deploy your network is affected by trying to provide that. We're never going to implement I'll never say never, but we're never going to implement proof of consensus, proof of location in JavaScript on the Agoric chain, because we don't have that model integrated into our lower system. But we could perfectly well interoperate with a chain that does so in order to get those across IBC and leverage them in applications. So now I can have an NFT for concert tickets that I mint and I resell through the secondary auction market that's running on the system and all that sort of stuff. And it includes restrictions. You can only sell it if you're not within a mile of the concert venue. And so it uses proof of location to do that. And, and it does so by bridging to that other chain that has this special consensus, right? And so there's plenty of reasons to go, okay, my application needs unique consensus. That means I should be my own zone and I want to be loosely coupled. Necessarily, if I need my own zone, I probably function differently. So I should be loosely coupled to the rest of the world. But I want to be coupled because I'm also not going to implement all the things that they're implementing. If I'm focusing on proof of location, I shouldn't be spending time on programmability. I should leverage that, right? Okay, so that motivates multiple zones, but there's a lot of applications, and obviously DeFi is a big chunk of that, where it does not need a different zone. It does not need its own chain. There's some of those, right? Osmosis is a chain for an AMM, but what's special about it is it's for experimenting on AMMs rapidly. So they need to be able to be disruptive and change. So having that safely in its own zone seems like a good idea, right? But those ideas, when they propagate back to an AMM on Agoric, they can coexist and they can all work just fine on a single chain because they don't need unique consensus.
Wow.
No reason to split and there are reasons to combine, and they're all good.
What great analogies and examples. Like I can really understand easily and simply, how that all works and what potential it has. And, thank you so much for the explanation. Recently you went through a successful incentivized testnet. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How has that experience been for you? What's currently happening to the project? Can you update us on what's currently up?
Absolutely, yes. So we are doing our incentivized testnet in phases because there are lots of different things to want to test, because Agoric it has a lot of pieces to it, right? It's got, the Tendermint consensus underneath that we don't really need to test because that's well tested in, Cosmos and Terra and these other systems, but several layers above that. So we just wrapped up the first of two stress tests, well, maybe two, maybe we'll see, maybe more, but of stress test phases, which was really, pushing hard on some of the innovations in how we do our contract execution. And one of the reasons you do test nets is you learn about things you did not expect. And we did. Same with the last time, we learned some in areas that we didn't expect. And so we then go back to the drawing board, think about, go stand in the corner and think about what we've done, and come up with the plan for what we're doing, to what we're changing as a result of all the good feedback that we've got. Now, we've had a really awesome group of folks in the testnet. We had a huge turnout that were interested in joining. We had 6,000 applicants, which is a crazy number for 125 slots on a testnet, right?
Wow.
Many of them, qualified in very different ways. There were inevitably people with awesome, useful experience that we simply couldn't take because, 150 is kind of the limit, right? For a Cosmos network, or for a Tendermint network. And but the crowd has been great. The validators have been great, where every time, once we got past the first wrinkle, the chain launches just flawlessly. Everyone's like lined up waiting for the chain to launch, and then 9 o'clock ticks over and it's producing blocks. Okay, I guess we're done, it's working. And then of course we turn up the screws on whatever it is we're testing, and things start to keel over or whatever, right? And so the stress test phase was, yes, my team passed. They got a lot of stress and they succeeded. And the network, yes, it also got a lot of stress, and we learned a lot from it. We have almost 0.5 terabyte of log information, of fine-grained log information that they're currently mining to figure out what's going on. Because as we go into setting gas prices and that sort of thing, some of it is, all of these different validators on different kinds of hardware with different configurations running the same code. First off, they'd better have come up with the same answer, even though they built this implementation separately. And then, some of them will take longer than others. Some of them will take more memory than others. How does that work? What does that look like? How much should we charge for certain amounts of execution? And that information, the reason we took our testnet stress phase and split it into two is that information will inform how we construct, how we parameterize and construct the next phase where we're actually doing gas metering and stuff like that. So each one of these, we learn a lot. We pull it back into the implementation, and we're trying, we're all scrambling madly behind the scenes. It's all very calm on the surface, but as we go and get new things working, end up new nodes or whatever, it's sort of the fun kind of startup company chaos to kind of make this stuff happen. But
that is the joy of running a startup.
We're trying to share more of it because our validators, they've been through it before on other networks, though nothing quite so many layers as the Agoric system. But so sometimes they bring their own tools to either help us analyze it or help us, challenge the system with things. So
I see. What a great experience. Now it's coming up to the second half of 2021. Of course, COVID is still ongoing, but I guess, Agoric is going strong. Do you have any upcoming milestones for the rest of this year? Any exciting news to share? Please share with us.
So I'll talk about three things. So first off, we're hiring. So we're hiring application developers. We're hiring, on the marketing operations side, we're hiring, check out our jobs. I think it's off our website or on AngelList or a few other places, but people who want to build smart contracts that have JavaScript expertise. Come get some. It's very cool stuff. So the second is, let's see, what was I going to say? Oh, yes. So we have a bounty program. So not only are we hiring, but there are some that are nicely doable by people that are not inside, that are outside organizations. And so we started it with, I don't know, $34K for the first 3 bounties, $34,000 spread across these bounties. Some of the, now those are ones where, they're big enough. We'll pick someone that's going to work on it. And so we've got applicants coming in for those, but we'll be adding bounties on a regular basis, for the next year, right? Some of them like stable swap, right? The curve stable swap where you're trading one stable coin for another. Our AMM is designed to be able to plug in additional curves. And so we need one that can do stable swap. Very, I won't say it's very straightforward, but it's certainly straightforward, clearly valuable, clearly has a place in the ecosystem once it rolls out. And there are lots of folks out there that would like to take a stab at implementing themselves in JavaScript. And so we're excited to support that. But there'll be more, of user interfaces or NFT supports or that sort of thing, as well as a process to say, hey, here's the thing that you need, and I think I can do it in JavaScript. Let's talk. And so we'll entertain those as well. So very excited to start the developer program, going and getting people interested in a lot of this technology. I will say, so the core of this, I mentioned hardened JavaScript. That's a we're part of the JavaScript Standards Committee. And that's that's used in things like Salesforce and brokers terminals and stuff like that, where we work with those folk and the Node.js folk and Figma and others on making it so it's, JavaScript only hardened. But we also work with MetaMask. So in the other room over there right now is the collaborative red team security attack on that hardened JavaScript, where next generation MetaMask and LavaMoat, one of the tools they build, uses that for its extensibility, and we'll use it to extend MetaMask to be able to support transactions in Agoric. So we work closely with them. So they're all in the other room doing security audit of that technology that our smart contracts rely on. So that's a lot of that sort of exciting thing happening right this very instant. So
very exciting.
The real thing is, end of summer, early October, we plan to roll out the actual first round of our chain with the treasury, the local stable currency, the AMM, and the ability to instantiate some of the existing contracts like the NFT or like the covered calls. Those are just contracts that are already there, they're already built, and so whichever ones we manage to get through security review before then could be activated or turned on by governance. So that'll be exciting once we're close to being out there and real for people. So very exciting.
Very exciting. I think more is about to come next year and onwards. And you really have to. I think it will be an opportunity to expand your ecosystem, further grow do you have any plans? Well, it's a little bit early for the project maybe, but then do you have any plans or I guess goals to drive user adoption? You mentioned about the JavaScript community, but I think that's a really big market that you can really tackle. And do you have any specific markets that you want to concentrate on, like regional markets or like, I guess, communities? Just curious about that as well.
In terms of regional markets, one of the things that we know we need to ramp up, and one of the reasons I was really excited that we finally connected is, the Asia Pacific market is clearly crucial for DeFi. And, and it's not that we're going to design a product and take it over there and everyone's going to go, ooh, we're going to have a platform, but we need people over there. There's a huge number of great JavaScript developers, over, in Korea, China, Singapore, Japan, et cetera. And, they know what they need. And in many cases, they built it in Web 2, right? And they've already got customers. They already understand their customers. And now we enable them to go build it and add high integrity blockchain to their mix in a way that they can understand and maintain over time. So starting to build the developer community there to be able to build on the Agoric platform is really a high priority from my perspective in terms of everything else going on. That's going to be a crucial centerpiece for the next generation of DeFi, because as I said, I think the next generation of DeFi is this ability to do rapid composition of components, and we're kind of the only way to do it. We're the primary bridge out into the rest of the developer community, and for DeFi, it's got to start in Asia Pacific. So very excited about that.
After COVID, you have to fly out here.
Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, and see the actual the ecosystem, and it'd be very exciting to see that. I guess one of the final questions that I have for you is, what is your ultimate vision for Agoric? It is a pretty grand question, but I think I think for every project, it does have its own goal, and Agoric, I think it has a very exciting journey ahead. So can you share with us like what you envision for Agoric?
Yes. So again, it's all about the cooperation. So our vision is that we have bridged out so that many more developers, millions of developers are able to build decentralized applications. My characterization is, if right now in Web 2 you can build a financial or commerce or whatever application, with our system you'll be able to build that in Web 3. You'll be able to build a decentralized version of that the same way you could do React and Node and deploy out to cloud services. And so that's the goal. And we think that we'll hit that by same way that Node.js and React did, by hitting developers and go, you're the hero that can make this happen. And they go, oh, my next project looks like this. I want to use this system over here because it looks like it'll be good for me. And you get organic growth there. So the world of DeFi and CeFi are a bridge where we get that capital from CeFi brought over into decentralized applications, and they're starting to build decentralized applications and decentralize a lot of the businesses they provide. That is where we get to real success. And obviously it's not just DeFi, it's not just finance, but that's the heart on which everything else builds, right? So, there was World Economic Forum looking at, if you could just do chain of custody with reliable high integrity, you would raise the world GDP by 5%, right? That's multiple $1 trillion from getting chain of custody on freight, which sounds really boring. Well, no, not necessarily, but getting that into high integrity is just this huge economic win for everybody across the world, right? That seems like a good thing. And so this is the platform that can get us there.
Great. Thank you so much for your insights. It's been a great pleasure to hear from someone like you, about this space, about Agoric. Very excited for the project and very excited to have you in Asia as well. And people should really check out, the background of
Agoric.com, join Discord, join Twitter,
join GitHub, Discord, and check out the website. I think it's recently rebranded, and join the test, the bounties, and very excited. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll hope to see you in real person soon.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Erica.